Greetings and salutations. I hope everyone is doing well and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? So for a while now, I have been looking into the Luciferian agenda, which in my theory, anything alien / demon, cryptid, paranormal, anything that is not of God or not of goodness, I believe falls under that. That even goes for secret societies. And the Nephilim, anytime I do an upload on the Nephilim, there's a lot of kind of discussion in the comment section. I remember reading a comment. I had just happened to look in the comment section on this one video, and it said that the Nephilim are the demonic souls of the angels that were cast out from heaven. Something along that lines. And that is not even remotely true. And I am not an expert. I've read a lot, and the angels, the fallen angels, they were sent to earth by God. The fall was when they fell in love with the daughter of men and started to procreate. And then having these just monstrous children, the Nephilim. They also started to experiment in genetic experimentation, genetic mutation. They were like breeding human DNA with animal DNA, their DNA with animal DNA, and creating monsters, creating creatures like the Dogman, and others. And so I said, wouldn't it be cool if I just deep dived, found some really amazing information on the Nephilim and these so-called other giants that were supposedly builders. And that may have truth to it. They just, I don't know if they fall under the Nephilim name. There certainly were giants. So I'm going to share this information with you guys, and we'll go from there. And, you know, it's just information that I dug up and wanted to share with you guys. So let's go. So remember, I do not classify or consider myself an expert. This is just information that I found after a really good deep dive, and wanted to share this with you guys. So, Nephilim. The Nephilim, the Mearu, the Meorics were mythical Basque giants or Bosque giants. The Anakim. Now, Bosque giants. People are like, what's a Bosque giant? Bosque, fact of the week, Basque mythology. Basques are known for their strong Catholic devotion. However, the Basques are also known to have converted to Christianity relatively late, before they had a mythology that was based on various supernatural beings. One of those was the Gentilec, or a race of giants. These beings, immense in size, existed before human, though maybe coexisted with human, at least in some tales. They had enormous strength and were responsible for the construction of many massive stone features, including churches, castles, bridges, and dolmens. Dolmens are essentially like Stonehenge, or where there's been large blocks placed on other blocks, maybe like an upright crypt or whatever. They were said to be more Christian than the Christians, which is kind of weird. They suddenly died when a black cloud appeared in the sky, and they fled to bury themselves. The Gentilec are a part of larger European tradition of giants. Think Jack and the Beanstalk in England. Modern influences have corrupted the nature of these beings in these stories, but less in the Basque country. They were originally benign beings. The Gentilec would play games such as Palida, throwing massive stones through the air that still lie at the foot of some mountains. One rock near a mill, a part of the Motrico, becomes surrounded by water at high tides. The widespread belief in these beings is reflected in a number of place names, including Gentil Barataza, Gentil Zulu, and Gentilexa. The Gentilec died suddenly when a black cloud appeared for no reason. They were not punished as in the biblical flood for past sins. Further, the race that succeeded them, the humans, were not as kind nor Christian as they were. This has led scholars to interpret these myths as the foundation of religious rites of burial. A translation from the original article in the Encyclopedia Anumendi. The Gentilec die and are buried under funeral monuments that perpetuate their memory. They die precisely to be buried. And in this way, the humans who take them as models learn that they also have to act in the same way with their own deceased, burying them and guarding their memory. This is reflected in the fact that the main culture obligation in the ancient pagan religion of the Basque consisted in a daily realization of offerings to the deceased of the house. In time, the cloud was reinterpreted as a proponent of the coming of Kiximi, or Christ. The Basque Santa Claus was a Gentile, and that's spelled as Gentil, by the way, who, being nearly blind, could look at the cloud and understand its meaning. So that is the term Bossk. They had their own giant and such. Now, Bossk is it's a people, indigenous group of people in the Basque Country region spanning from Spain to France. Their homeland situated in the Western Pyrenees near the Bay of Biscay. So those, when we hear those stories about these certain giants building structures, you see those AI videos and where these just monstrous humanoids are building the pyramids and such. These supposed giants were not Nephilim, supposed mythology before the Nephilim. So, just interesting information. The Anakim, they were descendants of Anak, inhabitants of the southern part of Canaan, near Hebron, as mentioned in Genesis and Joshua. Supposedly, they are descendants of Nephilim. So, Nephilim are mysterious. Now, remember, this is just a bunch of information. There's going to be different, because the word Nephilim can be translated into two different meanings for some reason. So the Nephilim are mysterious beings or people in Hebrew Bible who are described as being large and strong. The Hebrew word for Nephilim is sometimes translated as giants and sometimes taken to mean the fallen ones. The origins are disputed. Some view them as offspring of the fallen angels and humans. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of human, and they bore children for them. The same became mighty human, which were of old human of renown. Genesis 6:4. Peake's commentary on Bible 1962 edition states that in the ancient Aram, Orion was known as Nephilah, and its descendants as Nephilim. Bashar's channeling, Atlanteans that survived. These Atlanteans that survived, that had a lot of lineage of the Anunnaki, a lot of blue blood. Also, again, some quite tall, 7 to 8 feet, was not unusual because, again, they had a lot of Anunnaki genetics, who were themselves quite tall and blue-skinned in terms of the tint that their blood gave them. But these Atlanteans that survived, that were tall and considered the demigods, consider the idea of a union between God and man. These that were, as Bible says, the heroes of the old, the heroes of the renown. In the olden days, the giants walked the earth at that time, and that did boost the various human civilizations around them, being human themselves, but also, again, mixed very strongly with extraterrestrial Anunnaki blood, and genetics did seek to preserve and, over time, become blended more and more through procreation into human society, creating different bloodlines, some of which contain more or less Anunnaki genetics. But these Atlanteans became what you now know in your biblical nomenclature as the Nephilim. These are Nephilim, the Atlanteans that survived, the Atlanteans that preserved their knowledge, that spread around the world, boosting different civilizations to a new level, a new height. New training with new technology in agriculture, in science, and many different areas, leaving these artifacts, these edifices, as a preservation of knowledge, as a preservation of what came before the deluge, came before the impact of the comet in the Atlantic Ocean that wiped their civilization out. But in starting over, the bloodline being dispersed among different tribes around the planet, the Nephilim did guide to some degree. Some of these bloodlines, along with cooperation from extraterrestrial sources, to make sure that the bloodlines did not die out. The Book of Watchers, 1 Enoch 1 through 36. The first part of the book is about the Watchers, a group of angels sent to Earth to watch over humans. 200 of those angels committed transgression by having intercourse with humans, creating a hybrid race called the Nephilim. Of the Nephilim, it is said that they were giants, savages that endangered and pillaged humanity. It is said that these watchers taught humans reading, writing, weaponry, cosmetics, sorcery, about the stars, meteorology, and other arts. And that this was problematic because it robbed humans the opportunity to discover the arts by themselves. That's a question I've always wondered. And I said it in a video. I was like, well, if God gave us a brain and gave us our free will, and wanted us to learn, why would he be upset with these angels that came, that he sent? Why would he be upset by teaching us this? And it wasn't that he didn't want us to know this information. He wanted us to learn it on our own, to further advance ourselves without any kind of outside interference, which makes a lot more sense now. They revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved for heaven, which men were striving to learn, the book says. The gods, or God, I don't know why I keep saying the gods, were not pleased about this intervention of the watchers in human affairs. The same story of interventionalists versus non-interventionalists is told in Greek mythology, Sumerian mythology, as well as various Asian myths about the old days of mankind, apparently. There were also experiments in crossbreeding between animals and humans going on, and they became pregnant, and they bore great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all of the acquisitions of man. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind, and they began to sin against birds, the beasts, reptiles, and the fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sin. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. Disgusted by all of this, God decided, or the gods, I'm just going to say God, because I don't know why this information keeps saying the gods. God decided to have a great flood to rid the earth of the Nephilim and other ghastly creatures, according to the book of Enoch. The Bible says that the Nephilim are bound in the valleys of earth, beneath the earth, until judgment day. So one thing that was said in the very right above this watcher part was, and I don't know if anyone caught this, was when they said the comet that hit the Atlantic Ocean. Now, here's something very interesting, and God being the greatest power, the all-knowing, the all-powerful. If by chance he wanted this great flood, the deluge or deluge, it would be very easy for him to control a comet and smash it into an ocean, and therefore create this rising of this ocean. And, there's the Great Flood. I was thinking about that right after I read that. I was like, that would make sense. If a comet slammed into one of our oceans, it would be a catastrophe. Quite the end of the world as we know it, or as they knew it. It would be an apocalyptical event. The constellation Orion reference. The Aramaic term Nephilah, or similar, is said to refer to the constellation of Orion, leading to the idea that Nephilim denotes Orion's mythological descendants. This view is cited in Peake's Commentary on the Bible, 1962 edition, which states that in ancient Aram, Orion is known as Nephilah and its descendants at Nephilim. Nephilim was a cabal lie to conceal the greater truth. There are various extraterrestrials visiting Earth in ancient times, and some were peaceful giants. There were also evil, mindless giants created by the Anunnaki, who constructed megalithic structures like Stonehenge to bait and kill humans. The elites worshipping them didn't want us to know about inhabited worlds beyond Earth, so they invented a story about angels mating with humans. It's not possible for humans and non-humans to mate. Now, I don't know. It makes sense. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. There's just a lot of information, just too much information, in too many different cultures. Too many different cultures, or all of the cultures, pretty much have similar beliefs. Ancient Asian mythology, Native American mythology, some of the old lore, some of the native tribes of America talk about a great flood. Like there was at one time a great flood in America, and maybe that's why the Pueblo built above, the water line. Who knows? The fallen ones. The term Nephilim is often translated as fallen ones in some interpretations of the Hebrew Bible. This translation stems from the root of the Hebrew word nephal, which means to fall. However, the exact meaning of the Nephilim in the context of biblical texts is somewhat debated among scholars. There are a few interpretations of why the Nephilim are referred to as the fallen ones. One, descendants of the fallen angels. One interpretation is that the Nephilim were the offspring of the sons of God, a human woman, as mentioned in Genesis 6:4. In this context, the sons of God are often interpreted as fallen angels, and thus their offspring were called Nephilim, or fallen ones, reflecting the fallen state of their angelic fathers. Mighty, but fallen. Another interpretation suggests that the Nephilim refers to their great size and might. They were described as the heroes of the old, men of renown, but also their moral or spiritual fall. They could have been considered fallen in a moral sense, possibly due to their violent or corrupt nature. fallen in battle. Some scholars suggest that the Nephilim could refer to their fate as warriors who fell in battle. This interpretation aligns with their depiction as men of renown, suggesting their fame might have been in marital prowess. Martial prowess, sorry. Etymological debate. It's important to note that the translation and interpretation of ancient texts, especially those as old and as contextually complex as the Hebrew Bible, often involve a degree of conjecture and debate. The term Nephilim and its translation as fallen ones is one such example where scholars might not fully agree on the interpretation. This is the key verse where Nephilim are mentioned. It states, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children with them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." This verse suggests that the Nephilim were the offspring of the sons of God and human women. Genesis 6:4. In this verse, the Nephilim are mentioned again in the context of the Israelite spies reporting back to the land of Canaan. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak, come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This suggests that the Nephilim were of great size and stature. That came from Numbers 13:33. Descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. The Anakim, a group of people mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. They are described as a race of giants, descendants of Anak, and are associated with the land of Canaan. The term Nephilim is also used in the Bible, particularly in the book of Genesis, and is often associated with giants or mighty warriors of ancient time. We saw the Nephilim. There, the descendants of Anak came from the Nephilim, is from the book of Numbers in the Old Testament. This statement was made by the Israelite spies sent by Moses to explore the land of Canaan. The spies reported back that they had seen the Anakim there, a formidable race of giants causing fear amongst the Israelites. In biblical accounts, the Anakim are described as powerful, tall, intimidating people, contributing to the Israelites' initial reluctance to enter the Promised Land. Over time, the Anakim were either driven out or assimilated into other populations in the region. The stories of the Anakim, like many in the Hebrew Bible, blend historical elements with mythology and symbolic narratives. So here's something interesting, just a thought, right? So these giants, the Anakim, were assimilated or pushed out of. Now, could these creatures, these red-haired giants that people are seeing in Afghanistan, in the caves of Afghanistan, in the caves of the Middle East, could they be direct descendants of these Anakim? Could be. Could very well be. Also, another thing that I wanted to bring up too is Canaan is where St. Christopher, the dog-headed saint, originated from, right? He was supposedly very tall, but also depicted as a dog head as well, right? And we learned that the Watchers, or the Fallen Ones, experimented in genetic manipulation with the birds, the reptiles, the mammals, and all other sorts of living beings? Is that where that depiction comes from? Did indeed Saint Christopher have a dog head? And what is this? How the is this how the population of cynocephaly began? No, they were a tribe of dog-headed people in India. So, I mean, it's all in that older part of the world, you know? Very interesting. Battles of Canaan is understood, or it is under Joshua's leadership, Moses' successor, that the Israelites engaged in the battles of Canaan, including conflicts with the inhabitants of the land, which would have included the Anakim. These events are detailed in the book of Joshua. The Anakim were said to be concentrated in several cities in Canaan, and the Israelites, according to the biblical account, eventually defeated them and took control of these areas. Offspring of Orion, Aramaic culture, and the term Nephilim refers to the offspring of Orion in mythology. Nephilim versus Nephites. Nephilim are mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, specifically in the book of Genesis 6:1-4, and in the book of Numbers 13-33. They're described as offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men before the flood. The exact nature of the Nephilim is the subject of various interpretations and debates among scholars. Some interpret these as giants, others as fallen angels, powerful rulers. Their mention in the Bible is brief and somewhat enigmatic, leading to a variety of interpretations in Jewish and Christian traditions. Nephites, as mentioned earlier, are a people described in the Book of Mormon, a text central to the Latter-day Saint movement founded by Joseph Smith in the 19th century. The Nephites are said to be descendants of Nephi, a prophet who migrated from Jerusalem to America around 600 BC. The narrative of the Nephites are contained entirely within the text of the Book of Mormon and is separate from biblical narrative. The Nephilim are part of an ancient Jewish and Christian tradition and are mentioned in the Bible text and roots going back thousands of years. The Nephites are part of the Latter-day Saint movement and are mentioned in the Book of Mormon, published in 1830. Nephilim are mentioned in context of early Genesis narratives, while the Nephites are part of a story that claims to describe the history of the ancient people in the Americas. Nephilim have been part of the Judeo-Christian lore and theological discussions for centuries, with varied interpretations. Nephites, on the other hand, are specific to the Latter-day Saint movement and its teachings. Nephi, Alma, and Moza. The book is divided into smaller books, each named after its main named narrator or protagonist, such as Nephi, Alma, and Mosa. It includes the words of prophets and leaders. Messiah, not Messiah, but Mosiah. So Nephi, Alma, and Mosiah. The lineage of Seth leading to Noah. Seth was the third son of Adam and Eve, born after the death of Abel. He was considered by many as a replacement for Abel and was seen as the ancestor of Noah and his lineage. Enosh, the son of Seth. Biblical mentions during his time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord, Canaan, son of Enosh. There is not much detail about his life in the Bible. Mahalalel was the son of Canaan. His name often interpreted to mean praise God. Jared, the son of Mahalalel. The Bible notes that people lived extraordinarily long lives during these times, and Jared was no exception. Enoch, the son of Jared. He is one of the most notable figures in Seth's lineage, known for his righteousness and for being taken by God without experiencing death. Methuselah is the son of Enoch, famous for having the longest recorded lifespan in the Bible, living 969 years. Lamech was the son of Methuselah. He is known for a brief poem he composed about his son Noah. And Noah was the son of Lamech, central figure in the Bible, known for building the ark and surviving the flood with his family in pairs of every species on earth. This lineage from Seth to Noah is significant in the Bible narrative as it traces the godly lineage through which Noah, that survived the flood, comes. It contrasts with the lineage of Cain, which is also depicted as ungodly in biblical text. Diana's vow, Zimbabwe. Now, there are pictures in Zimbabwe, actually, of people's killing Nephilim and such. There are, like, I guess, hieroglyphs, maybe, would they be considered? Petroglyphs? Of like a giant at Lake Chivero in Zimbabwe. The Iggy herds, the little people on the bottom. Afro-Atlanteans look on. 5 beings, Lemurian race. It was their DNA crossed with Anunnaki DNA to produce little people. So DNA from Anunnaki and Lemurian created a race of people. Nephilim and Anakim in the land of Canaan, Numbers 13, is the key passage on the giants in the land of Canaan. When Israel left Egypt and was in the wilderness, when Israel left Egypt, wouldn't it be when Israelites left Egypt and was in the wilderness seeking to enter the promised land, Moses sent 12 Israelite spies, one from each tribe, to Canaan. The spies were to scout out the land and assess whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak. Numbers 13:18. The spies returned to Moses after 40 days and gave a good report about the land. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Numbers 13:27. However, they gave a bad report about the people on the land. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites, dwell in the lands of Negba. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. The etymology of the Nephilim. Ronald Handel states that it is a passive form, one who has fallen grammatically, one who is appointed deputy or overseer, one who is bound. Hebrew Nephilim means literally fallen one. Ronald Handel states that it is a passive form, one who has fallen. Grammatically, one who has appointed deputy or overseer, a sire, one who is bound, prisoner. The Hebrew Nephilim means literally the fallen ones. Given the complex meaning of the Nephilim, which emerged from the three interconnected biblical passages, human, divine, hybrid, in Genesis 6, the Chenosis people in Numbers 13, and ancient warriors damned in the underworld in Ezekiel 32. Greek translators recognize these similarities. First and foremost, both Nephilim and Gigantus possessed an ambiguous identity, being a mixture of human and divine. They were also viewed with fascination and moral contempt. Secondly, both were presented as impersonating chaotic qualities and posing some serious danger to the gods and humans. Lastly, both Gigantites and Nephilim were clearly connected with the underworld and were said to have originated from Earth, and they both end up closed therein. In 1 Enoch, they were great giants whose heights were 300 cubits, because a cubit is 18 inches. This would make these Nephilim somewhere around 450 feet tall, or 137 meters tall. The majority of the ancient biblical translations, including the Septuagint, Theodotion, Latin Vulgate, Sumerian Targum Onkelos, and Targum Neophiti interpret the word to mean giant. Symmachus translates to violent one, and Aquila has been interpreted to either mean fallen one or the ones fallen upon their enemies. So violent ones, fallen ones, or the ones fallen. J.C. Greenfield similarly believes the Nephilim lore based on the negative aspects of the Apakalu tradition in Sumerian mythology. The Apakalu were 7 antediluvian culture heroes praised for their exceptional wisdom. In fact, some were even called the son of Ea. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who came of the Nephilim. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Numbers 13:32 through 33. They lie with the warriors, the Nephilim of old, who descended to Sheol with their weapons of war. They placed their swords beneath their heads and their shields upon their bones. For the terror of the warriors was upon the land of the living. And when the angels, the sons of heaven, beheld them, they became enamored of them, saying to each other, "Come, let us select for ourselves wives from the progeny of man, and let us beget children. Enoch 7:2. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters, and the angels and children of the heaven saw and lusted over them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose our wives from among the children of the man, and beget his children. And Samajaza, who was the leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of the great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual not the abandoned this plan, but to do this thing. Then swore they all along together, and bound themselves by mutual and they were in all 200 who descended in those days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn, and they bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Book of Enoch. In addition to Enoch, the book of Jubilees 7:21 through 25 also states the riddling the earth of these Nephilim was one of God's purposes for the flooding the earth in Noah's time. These describe the Nephilim as being evil giants. In addition to Enoch, the book of Jubilees 7:21 through 25 also states that ridding the earth of these Nephilim was one of God's purposes for flooding the earth in Noah's time. These works describe the Nephilim as evil giants, and the offspring of Seth, who were upon the holy mount, saw them and loved them. And they told one another, Come, let us choose our daughters from Cain's children. Let us bear children for us. Enoch 2, 1 through 3. Even the Quran has Nephilim versus Jabarin or Gibborim. Quran refers to the people of Ad in Quran 26 130, whom the prophet Hud declares to be like Jabarin, Hebrew Gibborim, probably a reference to the biblical Nephilim. The people of Ad are said to be giants, the tallest among them 100 feet high. However, according to Islamic legend, the Ad were not wiped out by the flood, since some of them had been too tall to be drowned. Instead, God destroyed them after they rejected further warnings. After death, they were banished into the lower layers of hell. Likewise, a long-held view among some Christians is that the sons of God were the formerly righteous descendants of Seth who rebelled, while the daughters of men were the unrighteous descendants of Cain, and the Nephilim were the offspring of their union. Nephilim referred to certain human males for the lineage of Seth, who were called sons of God, probably in reference to their prior covenant with Yahweh. Deuteronomy 14:1, 32:5. According to these sources, these men had begun to pursue bodily interests and took wives of the daughters of men, those who were descended from Cain, or from any people who did not worship God. The sons of Seth view is also a view presented in a few extra-biblical yet ancient works, including Clementine literature, 3rd century caves of treasure, and the 6th century Guy's work, Conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan. In these sources, these offspring of Seth were said to have disobeyed God by breeding with the Canaanites and producing wicked children who were unlike, thus angering God into bringing the great flood as in the conflict. Certain wise men of old wrote concerning them, and say in their sacred books that angels came down from heaven and mingled with the daughters of Cain, who bare unto these giants. But these wise men err in what they say. God forbid such a thing, that angels who are spirits should be found committing sin with human beings. Never. That cannot be. And if such a thing were of nature of angels or Satans that fell, they would not leave one woman on earth undefiled. But many men say that angels came down from heaven and joined themselves to women and had children by them. This cannot be true, but they were children of Seth, who were the children of Adam, that dwelt in the mountain high up, while they preserved their virginity, their innocence, and their glory like angels. They were then called angels of God. But when they transgressed and mingled with the children of Cain, and begot children, ill-informed men said that angels had come down from the heaven and mingled with the daughters of men, who bore them giants. Fallen angels were believed by Arab pagans to be sent to the earth in the form of man. I did not realize that Arabs had a form of paganism. Some of them mated with humans and gave rise to hybrid children, as recorded by Algiz, a common belief held by Abu Juram, an ancestor of the Juram tribe, was actually the son of the disobedient angel and a human woman. In some readings of the non-canonical text, the Nephilim are children whose father is an angel and whose mother is human, and they are giants, also known as Gibborim, referred to in the canonical book of Numbers 12, and others. Angels and human women produced children who are Gibborim, and the Nephilim have fathers who are Gibborim and human mothers. In the book of Giants, we found there even more corrupt offspring. The giants were variously called thereafter Nephilim, Gibborim, Raphaim, being the earthly half-breed race that fought against God and his righteous followers, whose numbers diminished as the world was overwhelmed with corruption and evil. The Book of Giants is an expansive narrative of the biblical story of the birth of the giants in Genesis 6, 1-4. In this story, the giants came into being when the Watcher, sons of God, who, per the story's corroborative Jubilees account, Jubilees 4:15, 5:6, God originally dispatched to earth for the purpose of instructing and nurturing humanity in proper ritual and ethical conduct, to do what is just and upright upon earth, were seduced by and even had love or bed down with human women, who then birthed a hybrid race of giants. These watchers, or Gigori, and giants, Nephilim, engaged in destructive and grossly immoral actions which devastated humanity, including the revealing of heaven's holy secrets or mysteries to their wives and children, and to mankind generally. I know a lot of people don't consider the book of Enoch to be biblical because it's excluded from the Bible, but it is. There are multiple references about the Nephilim in just the Old and New Testament. And obviously throughout that bits and pieces were mentioned. The word Nephilim means fallen ones, giants, and is used in Genesis 6:4 to describe the offspring of a relationship between the sons of God and the daughters of man. The Nephilim were on earth in those days and also afterward when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were mighty men who were of old and men of renown. So that was Genesis 6:4. Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. God had prophesied that the Messiah, the offspring or seed of the woman, would crush the serpent's head. So it was possible that a union between union of demons with woman was an intent to thwart God's plan. It's also possible that the Nephilim were one of the main reasons for the flood of Noah's time. Interestingly, though, Jude, there's reference in Jude, and when in the Roman Catholic religion, confirmation, we take a saint, and mine was Jude. Jude 1:6-7. And the angels who did not stay within their own possibility of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until judgment of the great day. Just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desires, serve as the example by undergoing a punishment of eternal life. So that would be mentions of the fallen angels that produced the Nephilim are now imprisoned, awaiting, and those would be what? The fallen angels under the Euphrates, chained up. There's 3, I believe. Supposedly there's 4, maybe even more throughout Earth, but I don't know. I just found this very interesting, and I hope that, it fills in some gaps. If not, research is amazing. I encourage everyone to research anything that I talk about on this channel. Like when I talk about attacks, when I talk about strange attacks, I want people to go and look at these attacks, look at these incidences, to debunk me, to question my theory, to question, to come up with their own theory, pretty much is what I meant. But, I am no expert. There is no expert in any of these fields. And I know that's kind of a hard thing because when talking about Nephilim, it falls under theology. But are there experts in theology? I mean, we're talking about interpretations. So can there be an expert in a science based on interpretations? I don't, in my own personal belief, no. I think there are people that have studied more or researched more or pursued more, but I don't believe they're necessarily experts, if that makes sense. So anyway, with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.